So I don't know where to stand. My mannequin is here due to the fact that I'm busy working on that. I guess it's okay. I'll just stand over here. Okay, so welcome in, folks. If you are here, I'm going to change. I don't think you can hear too much of the music, which is okay. So I know I'm here for a few minutes early, but today we're going to go back to the question of the color wheel, because I think there's a distortion still about what people perceive as slop, okay, versus actually quality content. And it's not about the construction of AI itself. It reflects what the person is creating on their own side. So basically, let's just take a living space. Okay, let's just take a space that you live in. And say you live in like a house that maybe hasn't been updated or kind of reconstructed or redesigned, and you're just living in a space that just has stayed the same for a long time. That's going to portray, an individual will basically portray their artwork, if they're using AI, as what they're surrounded by. So if you're surrounded by bright colors and you upgrade your space and you design your space accordingly, and you try to advance just within the space, the living conditions that you're in, that will automatically start building up your understanding of aesthetics. And aesthetics doesn't always mean the appearance. Like, it doesn't mean looking at a person and saying, oh my gosh, she's like, aesthetics in terms of the arts means quality, color theory, understanding the elements of how color works. Why does gray work well with, like, if you put these colors together, what is the reason these pop out versus the gray in the back? How does gray work in a painting? This is a piece that I did below. Welcome in, folks. That's one of my paintings. How does color work with a painting that one just does in gray, right? This is actually beyond just color theory, but interior decorating plays a big role in this as well. And I want to talk a little bit about art history, because that was what I was qualified. I'm qualified in the arts. So I know how to paint detailed pieces because I studied the arts, right? That's an example of one of my paintings I painted. This is a painting. It's not an oil painting because I have allergies to skin, allergies to paints. This is in fact watercolor on board and then a glass over it, right? Hold on a second. Just put the music back on. I'm gonna just loop the track that I'm producing here. So it goes straight into the topics of how paints were actually constructed. Who knows about paint? Who knows how paint was actually created? Paint is made out of minerals, or originally made out of minerals found on the earth, right? This started, the pigmentation of constructing paint actually started with what we already have on this planet. So as we got more detailed into the construction of pigmentation, science came to become part of the process of the arts. So arts and science and music technically are actually molded together because it's the learning space for where we are today, right? And pigments started off in Egypt, right? I don't know if anybody knows that, but Egypt was the first starting point of understanding how pigments are mixed and how they are constructed. Yes, it's an academic day, folks. It's an academic day. Let me go into this. And then we have, Egypt. So it gives you a little bit of information. These are mainly just the images, right? These are the images of Egypt. But they don't always go into depth into the discussion of how the pigmentation was constructed. They were minerals, and they were scientifically modified over time to create what we have now today as paint, right? And a lot of the times, a lot of the paints back in the day were highly toxic. That's why if artists were constructing paintings, a lot of them actually did not make it over the age of 30 because of the metals and the lead. Lead was used to make white. It's no longer used to make, this is black, but lead was used to make white back. This is, I think this is acrylic that I have here. Acrylic. So white, like ivory white, was created out of lead. And lead actually killed a great many of the artists at a young age. So as we started developing the concept of trying to save ourselves, and pigments were also included into makeups, which is why all these royal families were not making it either, because they were over powdering their faces, and they also died at a young age. So science and medicines, you know, things started coming about. For me, I have had always a big problem with chemicals, so I stopped using paints. Even in university, I actually broke out into the hugest rashes when I used oil painting, so I stopped. I was like, I'm not going to use it. And I shifted over to watercolor and textile, which is why I started using textiles in my exhibitions and artworks. Okay, that was part of the reason why I incorporated that into the arts. And fashion plays a big role in color theory. I mean, color theory, you're taught color theory in the art industry and in the fashion industry. They actually interlock. They're you know, I studied both. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I kind of technically do both, because I just couldn't handle the paints, which is why I shifted over to textiles. I obviously did my degrees up, right? And then I used recycled papers and stuff to create my next phase of the arts. Okay, so this is a sample, paper mache, right? So that was part of the process. So I had to find ways to create the artwork without having a breakout, because it was consistent for me. I actually, like, I had rashes like all the way through university. It was pretty bad. So you have to think about why AI came to existence. It's not because, as I said before, art and science play a big role in human development. And without science, you would not have things like paint. And we would not understand the concept of how to create colors in nature, like this kind of stuff, which is stone and gold and metals, right? And metal was mined. Humans created the metal. We were able to mine it and mold it, which is the whole point, right? So there's a lot of things in history, and then you go into the question of the environment. How do you live? Where do you live? What is your lifestyle? Do you decorate your house? Do you leave the house not decorated? Do you understand how to mix colors into your space to make certain things pop out and other things not pop out? This space never looked like this before. I had to decorate it accordingly, but I worked on what sections would work the best for particular things. And then you had inks. I think this is China. You have inks from China too, right? Okay. This is a huge book. I mean, and then you had the Renaissance. And they used a lot of gold leaf, right? I think this is the Renaissance. Is this the Renaissance? The Renaissance, right? Oh, it's such a huge book. It's like world history. Oh my goodness. Right, and they used a lot of gold. But during this time, they created the white off of lead. And that led to people dying. So, you know, people don't always think, oh, well, what was the paint made out of before? Everybody talks about how the pieces were constructed and the colors and the contrast. But the science behind the paintings, what was offered to create the paints in the first place, right? And the colors were like, they were muddier because they didn't I think they were formulating things into canvas. They were mainly painting on walls. I don't know if canvases came about till later on. I'm not sure when canvases popped over. Oh, they probably somewhere along the way. And then people have always told me, oh, you're such a Renaissance lady, because in the Renaissance era, you didn't have like 10,000 people working on like 6 projects. You might have had one person working on like the 6 projects, right? Yeah. So you always have to think about how art is always constructed at the beginning. And when I was in South Africa, we spoke about art history in South Africa and the craft. Craft played an enormous role. And how was craft constructed? Why was craft constructed in the first place? You have India. India was all into silks and textiles. Paints as well, sculptural elements. Every country in the world was telling a story through visuals, something that could hold a vision forever. And the artwork became a big place to emphasize those discussions. Oil. The era of oil. Oil paintings came about, right? And over time, people started understanding how color was constructed and how to mix the colors to make it look more realistic. So it really does, Then you have Renoir and Monet and the Romantic era, right? I should have slideshows, but that gets a little bit more complicated because I don't know which rights I have for what, but if I have books, I can assess them and talk about it. This is like physically my stuff, so I'm allowed to show and display. Right, we know who this artist is. Is this Van Gogh? Yeah, Vincent van Gogh. Yeah, we know this. Van Gogh was also a disturbed person, so you can see it in their pictures. You can see that the person, their experiences are different. So each person's experience is going to create a different artwork. And that goes for everybody. The more detailed you get in a work, the more detailed you get into the piece. Same thing applies for AI. Let's create an AI image. And when I create AI images, I literally have like a whole bunch of images first that I create. And then with all those like 200 images, I then decide, okay, out of these pieces, what am I going to use for the image and how to mix the colors? So yeah, I'm talking AI because I believe that AI is just another tool and another paint for the skilled artist. You have to get to the stage to understand what it's about. Art is a skill. It is not given to you. It is something you have to learn. Okay. Actually, I could use this for example. Let's use a green screen. Where's my green screen? You don't just come up with these colors. You have to understand how the colors work. How do you mix these colors together to get those? Same thing for paint. How do you mix all of these colors to get to just a gray painting, right? Okay. Color theory. Okay. So it also depends on your background, your history. Do you have an understanding for the arts? Okay, and then I'm also going to show the new interpretation of color theory. Okay, so we're going to use these characters. And then to pick up the idea of what works, right? How are designs created? How is manufacturing playing a role in the arts? Oops, something dropped, I don't know. Okay, so I just want to emphasize that some people actually are qualified within the field of the arts. And it's no coincidence that I understand technical skills with the AI because I use it just like a tool, just like a paint. Okay? And contrast. Why do these colors work? Right? What is the reason why certain blind boxes work and others are just not as fantastic? It's how the colors are mixed together. I mean, if the person understands, if the design company understands the quality of not just the shape, but colors, how to mix the colors, it plays a role in how your eye sees and perceives things, right? It's not an overnight thing, I'm afraid. What colors do you find in nature? This is a natural stone. So all these colors we get from nature in the first place, right? This is a print of a real image of, I don't know where it is. It could be in Alaska. It could be somewhere in the north. I don't know. But these are nature-based colors. Then we as humans decided to choose paint to create the color that nature gave us in the first place. And in order to understand that, you actually need to study a degree in the arts to really get the feel. And before AI we had graphic design, and I think when graphic design came out, people were also very hesitant because I was doing graphic design when it first came out in the 80s? No. Early 90s. I'm 46, so I'm not like a teenager, hey? I'm sure you can tell I'm not a young person. And even when we had graphic design and graphic design first came out, people were like, oh no, we just don't believe in this stuff. What is going on? We don't understand the technology from paint to technology. So AI just becomes the next level of technology that shifts the arts into another paint. It's a paint. We created it. You know. It wasn't from Egypt. Egypt Egypt was the start to where we came up with the idea of construction of paint and how to mix colors, because they were actually the first, right? Africa. So you just need to remember, it all came from here. This is natural. I'm pretty sure it's natural. Looks natural to me, right? Natural colors, nature, another example. Then we had manufacturers that started taking over, and it became a problem for environments. So I personally think that AI has become an accessibility situation where we don't have to stress out about environmental issues when you're painting, or me breaking out into a rash because my skin is so allergic to oil paint. There's a way around it. There is a way around it, you know. And eventually people will catch on to it. But I think the artists will be the forefront of figuring this out sooner rather than later, as we have identified, right? And this doesn't just happen. This happens because I understand how to mix the colors and how fashion works and contrast and colors and ideas. These are things that I came up with, but I mix pictures around. I don't just stick with one, right? These are things that I came up with before AI became like this huge thing. I was already on it. I was already on the process because I understood how to mix colors, right? I think this is one of the first ones that I started playing around with. And then you have my old paintings, watercolor, right? So I know how to paint and draw and all those things. But I studied this stuff. This is what I studied. This is what besides the music, and this is the piece that you see underneath. I don't know if you can zoom out. Let's see. No, I don't. Not in this case. You can't zoom out. Okay, let me just take this back. And all those silly moving images I do are because because I understand color. I'm not going to play around with something that I don't understand. Welcome in. I'm talking about the arts and how nature became the paint before the paint became the paint in the world of the arts, right? It had to start with something. And you have to remember, if it started with something, the only next logical thing with something is definitely moving towards something a little bit more environmentally friendly, which is AI. You're not touching paint. Just like graphic design, all you're doing, your eyes are probably getting a little sore with the online screen. But graphic design was the next level to trying to save the planet in some way. And then from there, we go straight into AI, because those people were tinkering with the idea, right? So it's a natural phase of development. The art was the same thing. Art did not just come out overnight and say, we're going to be art. It happened over thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Billions of years. Decades, centuries. Different parts of the world were coming up with ideas. You know, it wasn't just an overnight thing. And music. The music you hear in the background, I'm sure it's a little fuzzy right now. Music also happened to be part of the process. I do read music too, so I also studied and taught that. This is another element. If you bring the music and the art together, you have two minds. And in fact, I think most artists were musicians as well, right? I don't think there was any, even Einstein. I heard Einstein was a painter. No, not a painter, a violinist. He played the violin besides being a science and mathematician genius. And I think it was Leonardo, who is a polymath because he had multiple skills, but all of them connected, okay? So yeah, academia is where I stand. And my channel is about the understanding behind the knowledge, right? Primary colors. Well, almost primary colors. Yeah. Red, blue, and yellow. These are the primary colors, right? Red, blue, and yellow. Primary colors. Primary colors. I guess these are pretty primary. Red, blue, and yellow. Yeah, these are primary colors, right? Yeah. So I think the misunderstanding is that when people are doing, if they're, I recommend, if you have a house and you like to decorate things, test out different colors in your space. Try different ideas before you jump into saying, aha, this is like the final outcome. It took me a long time to figure out what I was going to do here. This is my mom's house is a little overdone. They love their stuff. I don't live with my parents. I live overseas, away from them, 200 million miles away from South Africa. I don't live with my family. Okay, so that's... But today's discussion is basically on how art became art, because people had to try new things and new ideas out before it was finally conclusion. The conclusion was a completed piece. And people talk about mud colors. The mud colors happen when you don't understand how to mix colors. That's what it turns out like. People talk about slop art or slop AI. It's because the person who's creating the AI may not have the technical skills, which they probably should consider doing. Right? So you need to get some skills down there before you can actually do some really quality art. I'm just having a discussion. It's just a conversation, because I feel as if I do talk about a lot of things on my channel. It's not just one time thing. And if you can you can check my websites out. So this is like my old stuff, but this is a show that I did in South Africa. Okay. I've done a couple of shows, hey. This is me painting this painting underneath over here. That's the, I don't know if you can see it, but that's the car painting. And then let's look at, so these are the first images I came up when I did AI. Hey, let me just see if I can find a decent one. So while everybody else was trying to figure out how to do it, here I am doing it. This is what I came up with for my first image, one of my first images. It was not a beginner's piece because I wasn't a beginner in the arts. I didn't start art when AI first came out. I started art in 19, oh my goodness, junior high, high school, college, university, years, over 20 years of art, okay, over 20 years of art. So I'm coming in with the understanding about how art works and how colors work to create something like this for one of my first pieces back in, when did AI first came out? 2021, 2022, when, yeah. So that was one of my first pieces. I wasn't just playing around with like, oh, let's create like a design. I was like, well, let's kind of color like organize and color manage the process. And then there was another piece. Let's see. There's another one, right? More experiments. These were just experiments that I was playing around with. This was when they first came out, okay? And then I eventually evolved into what I'm doing now, which is a little bit more technical. I mean, still animals, but now we're doing interior decorating and designs. That's what I'm working with. I'm not just coming in as a beginner. I'm coming in as somebody that actually understands how to mix colors. I studied at the Corcoran in the United States, which is around the corner from the Smithsonian. It's opposite the White House and around the corner from the Smithsonian. And I was always surrounded by the museums. So we had particular courses that we had to take to understand how colors worked, how to create decor, how to understand furniture design. This is everything that I'm doing right now. So all of this AI stuff is just part of what I'd studied. You know, this might be new to many, but it's old history to me. This is something that I've been working on for decades. It's just using it in a different format. My materials are now, right? And if I really had to, I could sit for hours and actually do that drawing, but it would take me like 6 hours. This took me like this. This took me, just go back to this. The piece below, okay, for example, that painting, okay, let's move this. This painting, and this is hand painted, okay, I can paint by hand. That took me about a month to do, okay? I'm not gonna sit there doing a whole month of paintings. Okay, so that's, it speeds up the process a little bit, but if I can do that, then I understand how to create the AI. So my channel is an educational channel, folks. It is for a learning process. It is not for the giggles, but it's a technical training class. Look at the color theory. Let's look at the new space that I have here. They work with these colors, the greens, the contrasting greens, and some white, okay? So that's what I just want people to take away from this space, is that I want people to understand that having something like this, even having a color wheel in your space, is probably a good idea. It would even help you understand your own space, your own house, your own design. Like everybody can improve on their spaces, right? So I think the first place to improve on understanding color theory is within your own house. And interior decorating is a good place to start, because you begin to understand how the colors work in a three-dimensional space. I think it's probably good. My mom was a great interior decorator. She has had magazines come into her house, like Elle magazine 3 times in South Africa, her interior decorating. So I come from a family that's very into colors and contrasts because that's part of what I did, right? And oh my gosh, 46. I'm 46. So it plays an intricate role. I'm gonna put it back up on another example. I'm not gonna pull all my pieces out, but let's use this. Okay, which colors did I use here? Let's look at that. Okay, how did I create this? Why do I know these colors work? Right? It all matters. It all plays. And why do I wear black? Why do I wear a lot of black? Because if I didn't wear black, I would blend into everything, and I think it would be hard for me to talk about color if I was wearing many colors, right? Let's do another. I'm not going to put all of them out, but let's. Color theory, which colors are working here, right? It matters. It does play a significant role. It does. It all matters. Okay. I'm sometimes here for entertainment, but on many occasions I'm here to teach and help people understand why colors matter. Why did I choose these colors? Why did I know they worked? How do I know all this information? Right? Why didn't I choose other colors? What was the reason? Right? Color theory. Okay. What's going on with these colors? Purples and greens. The blending of colors. So when I do things like giving a prompter and information or details, I go into specifics. I want this color. I want this design. I want the images to look a certain way. And I go very, very specific. Okay. And then the recent one that I just did. Where's that new one that I did yesterday? Another example, I use these on Poshmark, for instance. This one. Okay, that's this piece. I'll show you. This piece. And how was I able to put that together? I was able to put that together is because I reverse engineered it. Okay. So there are many ways to go about doing these prompters. You just need to know how to use the tools properly. If you know how to paint a painting and you know how to mix colors, you begin to understand how AI works much better, right? It's not just about a pretty painting, it's about the technical side of things. How do colors work together? Why do certain things not work together? What is the reason why certain designs and colors just don't work out? Because if you put too many colors together, you end up with brown. Understanding the color theory opens up that perspective of how certain things work, right? That was the image that that image I did of my piece that I made, okay? But I reverse engineered it. And then for instance, for Poshmark, let's go into this. I think then I use these images. Hold on a second. Like an image like this. Oh, and I'll show you Photoshop. This is Well, I'll show. Okay, hold on. The piece is one of the pieces that I made. So the top I made, right? So I recreated that into this image. I used to do photographs for modeling and models, but I don't like it gets too expensive now. So I've just gone this route. It's just easier for the fashion side, right? And you have to understand colors. It really does go into like who knows the color theory, because if you don't have this, you really don't have anything, right? And to understand where the colors came from, it came from nature. It came from metals. It came from minerals. It came from the ground originally. You know, it's not. Another one of my first pieces I created. One of the first images I made. I made a couple of first ones. Okay, so these are older images that I kind of constructed. So while everybody was doing 2D, I was already doing 3D. That's the difference. Like, some people are just going to be ahead of the game because of what they know, right? Another old image. Okay, so these are, I'm showing you the first images that I came up with. I didn't go into, oh, let's experiment with a video game, because I don't play video games. I work with art. That's what I do. Okay. Okay, and then my space. But the color theory, it brightens your day up if you know how to use the colors right on the platform. Okay. What colors work well? These are the primary colors. Red, blue, and yellow. If you know how to mix these colors with a little bit of white, right, you can come up with so many colors. And if you mix them wrong, they might turn out like this, brown or gray, depending on if you have too much red in it or if you just have blue and then a mixture of things, because lots of different colors can turn into two different colors. And if you have lots of different ideas and you don't know how to use a prompter, it's going to turn out muddy and yucky. Like, and that's why everybody's stuff, if you're not qualified, you know, classes are available. I'm here to help. If you guys want to take classes on art, I teach art. Like, I wouldn't be like doing this if I didn't teach art and music. I produce music as well. But today's an art day. We're talking art. Because I don't talk enough about the arts, right? Color theory. What works? Why are these colors all mixed up? How do you mix these colors from this? What colors you need to understand how to make these colors work from paint? Once you know that, then you got the magic formula to creating fantastic AI images, right? It's a palette. And AI is all about understanding your art. Okay? Once again, going back to my first AI images, that's what I was doing at the beginning, right? So I wasn't just doing ordinary stuff. I was taking it to the max already. How can I push it? And then me experimenting with how do I add myself into the space. Nobody was doing that at the time, right? I'm all about explorative, all about it. I'm about pro understanding skills. What works the best? Why are the colors mixed the way they are? Well, how did I do it? Right? Color theory. Nature. There's the green. And then already in these colors, you already have a whole bunch of different colors, right? From here. Nature. Nature created the paints that could create, which were toxic at the beginning. Created the paints. Now we're moving into a world of technology. Before the AI was graphic design. I was doing graphic design too. Let's see if I can go into this. My website that I built, let's see if I can find this. Oh, I might not have all the website stuff. I mean, it's certainly not on the phone because, yeah, you can go onto my website personally and, sorry, take a look at those. Might have to put a lozenge in there. Okay, this is like sort of graphic design, right? I'm playing around with graphic design. I studied graphic design as well, so I know how to kind of play around with how to mix things up, you know. And there are different ways. You don't have to use Photoshop anymore. You have different applications you can use to create this now. You know, it's gone beyond just Photoshop, right? It's gone beyond just Photoshop, right? I'm just making a point here to show that you sort of have people who understand, like this is, wait, hold on. Yeah, so that's like, how do I put those together? That's Photoshop-like work. That's Photoshop stuff. So it's just another layer, you know? See it as another layer. Don't push it away unless you know what it is. Okay? Be open to the suggestion of trying new things. I always tell that with my other students. It's like, if you don't like one thing, try it out. See what you can do, experiment and explore, and then one of these days you'll eventually figure something out. This didn't just happen overnight. This is 20 years of art education. 20 years of art education, or more, I don't know. Years. I don't know how long I've been doing it for years. I've been doing music since I was 3, because my mom's a music teacher. And I've been doing art from junior high, actually elementary. Yeah, girl, we've been doing art like all our lives, right? But some people choose to do something, and I got a scholarship for the arts. So I wasn't going to take it down and say, no, I'm not going to do it, right? I thought it was important. Open. Let's do this. Hey, and this is another track that I produced. There's some, it's not perfect, right? And that's music, okay? So understand, that's music I produced. So I do both, 3 things. And I was a formally trained music instructor, so I also teach music. Reading music, playing music, composing music. Most times people are not really composing music in schools. I think schools do lack in that skill. I think they're beginning to start doing that with the music production, but like, you learn the basics, just like you learn the basics in the arts. You learn the basics in the music. This is the basic for the arts and fashion. Fashion, you always start with like color theory, and then drawings, of course. And then music is understanding how to read the notes. 2 very similar things which grew together throughout development of human evolution, right? That is the whole point. Okay, so if a DAW evolved in music production and a MIDI was the starting point to AI, because AI had to have come from somewhere, and it's the connection between a conversation of a machine and a human interaction of a little bit of technology, a little bit of electrical skills, wiring, just like paint came from pigment, technology came from wire, right? If it wasn't for cables and understanding how to create and manipulate wire, we would not have technology in the first place. We would not even have a computer. So yeah, it does play, science plays a big role in both, unfortunately. So paint on one side which came from pigment, and wire, gold, silver, metal, all sorts of wires are made to create chips and the internal workings of all sorts of hardware, right? It's very, very important to know that both actually work together. Okay. So wire for technology, and pigments and a little bit of science for the arts. And without these two things, we would not be where we are today, right? And that's basically the quick chat for today. Metal, welding, right? That became part of the construction of buildings and manufacturing companies. Now, I think that we are over manufactured, which is why we have this environmental issue right now, which is why I always go back into talking about paper and recycling, because I really do think that humans are just greedy, and we have not thought about caring about the very planet that these came from originally, right? This had to come from drilling holes into the planet, lots of holes. And then you have oil. Oil became a necessity for transport besides different paints. So it all comes from nature. We learn from nature. But this takes billions of years to get to a stage of actually reflecting on writing something like a history book to talk about where we are today, to understand how we got to where we are, to know where we're going to go in the future, right? To where we're heading. Red, white, and blue. Red, yellow. So gold was used a lot. And gold was like yellow, right? And then you have a pigment, which was originally this blue. This blue came from pigments that were collected. I think the Egyptians came up with the science for that blue. So blue is a very, very majestical color that was used in royal, and it gets expensive. Materials and fabrics and supplies, they're extremely, paint is an expensive process to do. Like making paint is very expensive, right? One tube, if you have a good quality oil painting, one tube could cost like a lot of money, okay? And it's not environmental. And then turpentine, then you play with turpentine, it's like a whole different, you know? But artists had to understand how to mix these colors to make them into paintings, right? It all stems from nature. This is a print of nature. I don't know who took the photograph, but it's definitely a photograph that was then created into a print. And then you have detailed pieces, right? Okay. So I'm talking about art because this is muddy. I find that these are muddy colors. I would never work with those colors. Like that's, for me, this is the colors you find, not the painting itself, but the colors. When you overmix the colors, you end up with this. That's overmixing colors. And when you try to be too smart with AI, you end up with a muddy piece because you didn't explain it very specifically. With AI, you need to be extremely specific. Okay? Van Gogh. Okay, so this is like, it's not just here. We talk about craft and textiles. My whole channel is about global understanding. We're textiles, right? These are Asian, these are new Asian projects or products, right? Fibers. But everything needed to be manufactured. It still does need to be manufactured to get to creating fibers and textiles and materials. This is a cotton, right? This is a cotton fiber-based material. And then we have things like leather, right? These are like, this is a combination of polyester and I think wool, I don't know, right? Color theory. Do these colors work well together? And if they do, what would you do with them in your space, right? And the reason why we have drums is because it was a survival mechanism. After you had eaten and the animal was, what do you do with the skins? Drums. This is not a drum, but this is probably what it might have looked like. right? And they probably shave the skin on the top. But it's part of survival. Everything has a role to play in the development of where we are in society right now. Okay? And I think the more you start to evolve with the technology and the lifestyle, the more things can start to happen. And the more you as an individual become knowledgeable of things you can potentially do as an individual. Right? And obviously people are indeed drawn to color, aren't they? We are drawn to color, aren't we? Right? We are drawn to color because color is what creates light and dark and contrast and understanding. Right? Okay. So exploring ideas. Are you ready to be open to ideas and concepts? Do you understand the color theory behind why I choose certain colors? How do you mix them? How are colors mixed? Right? How do you mix it on an AI format? What do you need to know in order to get to this point? What works? Why does it work? Where does the gray come in? Why do I understand this stuff in the push? I do know that green and red are secondary colors, and gray. They always work well, but you need to mold them together correctly, right? Secondary colors. Black is just a great color to play with, okay? This is not my first rodeo. My first rodeo was when AI first started coming out. So I've been giving myself a little bit of time to learn how to do this more methodically. And the more you practice, like I always say, the practice makes perfect. The more practice you make, the more you get practice in these things, the better you get. The same thing applies for music. The more you practice music, the better you get music. The more you understand, this was one of my photographs. I took my own photograph, okay? The more you practice, the better. It goes for everything. It goes for everything. It's practice makes perfect, literally. Practice always makes perfect. The more you practice anything, the better you get at it. Okay? That's just how it works in life. If you don't practice, you're not going to get to the direction you want to go to, right? The more you do it, the better you get. It's just how it is, I'm sorry to say. The more you do it, the better you get. Primary colors. Did I use primary colors? I don't know. Right? Color contrast. And if you know how to use the colors, you can do anything. But practice makes perfect. I'm just talking about art, okay? I'm not doing my music today. I am literally talking about creating images, but understanding the colors and technique behind it. Most people just see the Labubu. I see what the Labubu can do, okay? Most people see an image and they say, I don't know how to create this, but I want to try it. And then it turns out muddy because they don't know what they're doing. That's what it is. Oops. Right? Or this little experiment. So these are all experiments, but these are all the images I've had. This is not a new collection of images. That's very dark. This is a very dark black and white image. And if you were to go back into history of the time from the 80s, everything was brown and muddy because it was always wood and there was no understanding of the color theory was there, but everybody was living in a similar kind of circumstance in the States, I don't know, overseas as well. And the more you explored different houses and different lifestyles in different countries, the more you got to see things in different ways, right? Practice makes perfect. If you're not willing to put the time into the work, you will not get better. Practice literally makes perfect. It's like it holds true for everything. It holds true for everything. Okay. These are not overnight ideas. These are things that I'd kind of constructed. You have to pre-plan the vision before you make it come to life, right? Pre-plan your vision before you make it come to life. Okay. I'm talking color theory today because I think when you do art, any art, it's important to understand how the colors work together. And the more you practice the skill of understanding how to mix colors. Hi, Dior. Oh, you want to see people? The better it gets. You want to go up and say hi? Hi. What is it? Oh, I got you. Hello. I'll feed you just now. Okay? You okay? Say hi to everybody. Here you go. Okay? I'll feed you now, Dior. Okay? Color theory. How does it work? Where are the colors? What are the colors that I used for this? Right? The more you practice, the better you get. It's just same thing for music, but you have to be ready to put the efforts and the energy into working on your skill, working on the craft, understanding a formula. If it took me 20 years to do the art and then 43 years to understand the music, you can just imagine how much work I've put in to my skill. I work hard, okay? I work hard to learn. I learn. I like to learn. I love studying things, okay? It does matter. It does play a role. Okay, it does play a role. You need to practice to understand. Going back to this once again. Can I do it by hand? I absolutely can do it by hand. But how long does it take me to make a painting? A painting takes me months, maybe even years. And these artists that you see here for these paintings over here, these European artists that did oil painting that died for their art, because they did technically die for their art. They died at young ages because of the chemicals in the paint. They didn't last. That's why people did not survive as long as they should have, right? Quite simple. These took years and years and years. This piece could have taken at least 15 years, depending on how long the painting under the drawing, it's an undersketch underneath, was done. It takes years. A painting now, right, we have more technical skills and we have easier ways to do things, but back then you probably had to build the canvas or cut the wood to create this, or find a wall that had to be painted to manifest this vision. It doesn't come overnight. Okay, just like history did not come overnight. Creating a vision does not come overnight. You need to have a real understanding. Okay. This is skill, right? This is skill. Lighter colors, I can always change the color up into different pigmentations. I can put it back in the pronter and then yeah. Okay. So this all matters. It all matters. So I know that people don't want to hear somebody talk about the arts, but to get to that, to understand that stuff, first do some education in arts. Know your art. Understand the history. Understand the music behind the, like, learn to read the music. This took me years. I'm not a lazy person. I've never claimed to be lazy. I've had to learn all sorts of things. I love education. I love to teach people education. People need to be ready to be educated, right? And if they're not ready to be educated, there's nothing I can do about it. The education comes with learning and listening. Listening becomes a very important part of the process, right? What colors work here? You can move these around. What are the best colors for these particular things? Then on the back you have colors that are mixed with gray, right? The color wheel's great. I think people should actually have one. Everybody should have a color wheel if they're trying out new things. Always have a color wheel. You can do all sorts of things with this thing, okay? And before I did all this stuff, I was doing graphic design. Now we don't need like Photoshop. I mean, you have a Photoshop on, you have Adobe Frisco, I think, Adobe Frisco on the phone, so you can play around with that as well. But understand how to, like, graphic design. I mean, that's part of what I do too, right? Test it out, try new things, always explore new ideas. There's a difference between somebody who's playing with it or somebody who actually knows what they're doing. Like, you need to know what you're doing. Like, you know. It's all about education. How did these colors come about? Why do we know so much about colors? First started from the ground. The paint came from the pigments, and the metals created the technology, right? Two different sides to the same story. Both of them came from the earth. And then obviously you have things like textiles that were created from plants, and feathers that people use for fashion. So that's also like nature. But now that we're in a world of conservation, we're really thinking about how things are made. You know, that's an important part of human growth. We need to understand that nature will not last long if we do not protect the planet, right? All of this, by cutting open the planet or Earth, we're disrupting the movement of the planet. The earthquakes are happening because we're causing it to happen. We're making so many holes for the oil that it becomes a problem. I think AI is personally a solution to our collapse. It's compacted. It's compacted into a computer now. Okay, and obviously, computer also has waves that are not necessarily good for your skin, but wire creates the metal. Okay, without the wire, you could not have things like electricity, technology. All of those play a big role. Unless you want to live in the world of Renaissance and just paint forever, who's going to do the painting? Are you guys? Right? It's all about understanding the colors. Right? What colors am I using here? Okay, planets. Think of environment. Paint came from, and mud, the earth. I mean, the earth was the first color. The browns were the first color, and then chalk. Chalk was made out of ashes, right? Burnt bushes and trees, and that's how we got charcoal. Okay? That is still being produced. Obviously, we burn stuff all the time, so charcoal is relatively easy, but then you have the metal, You have to remelt this, you know, to create it. Then you have things like technology. The tablet becomes the art. And on the tablet you have things like Photoshop. We didn't have a tablet before. I don't remember using this in college. I'm too old to be claiming this as the thing that I used. I was teaching kids on this, but I wasn't using it to learn the stuff. I was on a computer, on a full-on one of the first Apple computers. Maybe third or fourth generation. But yeah, I was using those. Okay. Okay. So technology plays a role. Let's add some color back, okay? Okay. So what I'm going to do now is let's use, I don't know if I can use this prompter. Let me just see. Oh, yeah, I can't do it on the iPad. Okay. Never mind. Just need to check my Poshmark quickly. Okay, and all of this stuff that I do on Poshmark, let me find an example with a picture or an image that I used of a photograph. Actually, I used AI for this. Yeah, this one. Okay. So, hold on. Let's get this right. So I used an AI image to create this, right? I put in the description of the pants into the prompter, and the prompter said, okay, they give us 4 examples of things. And the most accurate one was this. It might not be absolutely accurate, but then I use this on my Poshmark. And then, because not everything is on like an image, I kind of have to work with how it's going to look on a flat surface on something like Poshmark. So if I don't have an image and I can't put it on a mannequin, I create my own image, right? For something like Poshmark. You can use it for eBay or whatever, right? And it does become like a useful tool to teach, to market, right? Another one. Wasn't perfect. This wasn't a perfect one. I say an approximate look. Okay, and this is what it is, but it's a see-through dress that's made out of knit, machine knit, not handmade. Okay. So there are ways you can use it for business. For me, it's a business tool. Okay. Another AI image that I use for Poshmark. Okay. And then my white background. I'll show you my white background. And then on the other side over here, you see that wall? I made this. This was originally red, and then I put over the red this fabric, and then I I kind of put it together. I did my own kind of like stapling with a staple gun and created a space that would allow me for the lighting to work well. As we know in art and photography, always a white background is a better strategy if you're going to market stock and products. Black would not work as well. I just think if you're going to sell something, it's easier to show on a space with a lighter background, right? It does a very different thing versus if you put the images on a different background like this. They pop out more because you get a chance to see the full color, right? Versus a muddy brown background, it's just not gonna work as well. So when you take photographs on something that's flat and clear so you can see the piece properly. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna do some, I don't know if I'm gonna do some, let me do this. I'm gonna put this back for now. So I've done a little bit of a talk. I'll be back. I have to feed my fur baby. Hold on, dear, I'm coming. I see you. I do see you. Hold on, let me put these back quickly. Okay, I'm coming. Hold on. Yeah, I'm gonna feed my Furby. I'm gonna put the music. You guys can hear the music. Pack this up. Let's do some music. I'm gonna go back to my music stuff. Okay, now I'm gonna switch over to music since I've had a discussion on the arts. So we are switching over to music production now. And we'll have the so hold on. Let's switch over. Oh, bugger. Here, let me charge mine. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to my music. Okay, I'm gonna go back to music production. I had my little art talk and art history. Now we're gonna switch over to music. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you the other technique. I didn't speak about the art as much, but now we're gonna go into this. Okay. Okay, so I want people to realize that why I'm doing this is because this is practice for me. The more you practice something, the better it is. I have many, many years of practice. Okay, this is not just a coincidence. I wish I was younger, but I'm not, unfortunately. I have many years of education here. And I do believe in education. I don't believe people should not just be educated. If you're going to do it online, be methodical, be strategic. Don't just say, oh, I'm gonna do something, and then you just kind of like call it off. That's not how you learn. Okay. So I'm gonna move this over here. Okay, now if I do this, I won't be able to see people. I have to wait for my thing to charge. Give me a second. Let me just reorganize this. Go back into the music now. So I'm not just here to entertain, I'm here to educate. Okay, so that's the difference between me and an entertainer, is that I'm actually here as somebody who is trying to do a little bit more here. Right? It's let's see. Should I put this here? I don't know where to put this. Here? I think that's okay. I don't remember where I put it the last time. Maybe here. Okay. Hold on, Dior. Sorry, feeding Dior. Okay. Let's see if that worked. Ah, it sort of worked. Okay, let's do that over again. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to go back into the other track that I was producing. I'm going to modify it. It's not perfect. Open recents. Close. Okay, so this takes time. It's not like I practice, you know? Like I tell my students, you got to practice before you can claim anything. You must, the more you practice, the better you get. It's just that simple. And it goes for anything. So practice makes perfect, folks. Practice makes perfect. It doesn't just happen overnight. I'm sorry to say. Okay, let me just move this out of the way. Do some music. Just need to see what's wrong. Okay, so there's the music side of things. Okay. What was this? Whew, I don't want to break my stuff. My gosh. Here, let's move it back here. Okay, so I'm gonna add that. Why is this like all funky now? Okay. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna start over. So it's gonna go. Okay, so we're gonna add that and go. Okay, let's see what we got here. Hi, viewer. Come here. You want to go out? Okay, hold on. try a different sound. Oak Piano Dream Synth. I wonder what that sounds like. Let's play with this. I need to come up with a melody. Hold on, dear, I'll be here. Okay, just one more moment. Okay. Let me do this one section over here. Okay, I want to add one more layer. So I added another part. I need to adjust the sections next, but I will do that later on. Let's just do one more. Where to go? Oh, there. It's uploading. Okay, so. Okay. Almost done. Just one more moment. Okay. Oh, I'm getting dings on my phone and everything. Okay. I'll check just now. Okay. Okay, so let's just do one more time. Get this right. Sorry. So let's just record. I'm gonna just record. Can I just add viewer? Okay, what did I do here? Let's hear it. Oops. Okay, interesting. Okay. So I'm going to save that. Oops, I don't know what just happened there. I hope it didn't. we're going to save that. Save. Always save the tracks. Okay, so this isn't overnight. This is definitely something I have been working on for a while. Music production. So as you can see, these colors are sort of like color coordinated here, but you got the blue, the red, and the yellow, neon yellow, I suppose. So I like to mix this section up with like those primary colors and then the whites, right? So that's like a thing. And the reason why my space looks the certain way is because I organized it according to color theory and what works best with training the eye for certain things, right? So that's a big factor of what I do here. Okay, folks, thanks for popping over. I had to have that conversation on art theory and where paint came from and how technology was created, because I thought it was rather important to talk about it. Have a great one. Have a great one.